Had a little listen to his podcast, huh?
Dude, it's educational. And besides, I've been wanting to listen to this one.
Welcome to Idling in the Impala, a podcast by and for lovers of supernatural and the fanfiction it inspires. I'm Casey.
I'm Sandra, and we've welcomed authors and friends onto the podcast to dig a little deeper into fanfiction. Alex, known as ZepSkies, is a reader, insert, and OFC writer who has penned many stories centered around characters brought to life by one Jensen Ackles. She's imbued her reader inserts and OFCs with diverse traits and characteristics that have reflected her Latin heritage and explored other cultures outside her own frame of reference. When I mentioned in our Idling Discord server that we were interested in talking to authors from various cultures about this topic, one of our members, Laila, known as Ruby VHS on Tumblr, was keen to come on for the chat. Unfortunately, exams got in the way of her joining us today, but she kindly took time out and answered some of the questions and talking points I had for this discussion, which we'll be sharing with listeners. So let's get into thoughts and feelings on cultural representation and diversity, or the lack thereof, in fanfiction. So I want to thank you, Alex, in person, for coming and joining us today. Thank you for coming back to the podcast.
Thank you. Welcome. It's great to have you back. Super hyped to get into this.
Thank you guys so much for having me back. I am so excited.
Yes, because we had a really long discussion, very fun discussion about just fan fiction and delved into a lot of different things. So I remember us talking a lot about culture in, our fictions and different things like that. And you really like being interested, and we were interested in really talking about more of like the diversity part of it and how it goes beyond, just our sort of frame of reference, or how we can, like you said, really put some of ourselves into it. And, what's the reaction? How do readers come about it? How do other writers, deal with that topic? And so we were lucky enough to have like Lily very interested in doing it. But again, like she wasn't able to join us. Casey is going to be the voice of Lily today when it comes to reading Lily's responses.
Everyone should be really pleased to know that in keeping with tradition, I have read exactly nothing. So Lily's answers to these questions will be as much a surprise to me as they will be to you. I hope not to convey that through my tone. Yes, you can call me Substitute Lily for this episode. And I wear many hats.
No, Alex, but I love that we still get Lily's voice in all of this, even though she can't, actually be here with us on the recording.
Absolutely. I'm going to put a link, Alex, to your interview with us, just so people can always go back and listen. But I thought maybe a shortened, condensed version, like to reacquaint listeners. How long have you been a part of SPN fandom, and how long have you been writing fan fiction?
I've been writing fan fiction since I was 10 years old, about 9-10 years old. But I didn't get into SPN fandom until like I was a senior in high school. So like 2014-ish.
Lily, would you mind answering the questions of how long you've been a part of the SPN fandom and how long you've been writing fan fiction?
I will. So Lily's answer is, I started watching the show about a year ago, and I made my Tumblr account when I started the 6th season, I believe. I heard about the show for ages, but never actually liked the idea of it until I started watching it, and I was just completely hooked. Classic story. The fandom is so nice too, which is probably why I'm so adamant to not stop writing for it. Usually I get bored really easily, but this is the longest I've been in one fandom because I interact with so many wonderful people. Oh, that's so nice.
Yeah.
And Lily
That's
says,
what's kept me in it this long.
yeah,
sure.
it's so much just, everybody's so nice. Everybody's so nice. Lily says, generally, since I was 10 maybe, it started in 6th grade and has passed a couple of fandoms since then, but SPN since September. How old are you in 6th grade, American people?
Like 10, 11.
Yeah, 10, 11. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, around the same time for you guys then. That's
funny.
Don't you feel like that's just a thing with fan fiction that, like, I don't know, I feel like I've heard some people write
hits you in
really, I've heard about some people like 6 or 7, like writing stuff that, they now realize was fan fiction, but I don't know if it's the hormomes. For me, it's the hormones.
I feel like such a late bloomer. I didn't start having anything to do with fan fiction or fandom or anything else until I was like midway through high school, like about 13, 14. I feel so little.
Well, I read a lot of it before I got the courage to actually try to start writing.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like, I always loved fandom. I always loved movies and shows and books. And then when I discovered, like fanfiction.net, like that was the big portal,
Mhm.
so
Yeah.
all that
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah. And
I think
go ahead.
looking at it now, I think it probably has something to do with the fact that we didn't actually get internet at home until around that age as well.
Well, that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah,
If that's the case, yeah.
I was not exposed to the internet until
I was
that kind of
books. I
age.
was just writing in books. Like that was my thing. Like, and I did it. I was doing it on my own with like friends or something and not realizing, back then what this was, like to the extent of it. So it's interesting too how it's progressed and like, just like infiltrates now a lot of different avenues and aspects of everybody's lives when it does get in there. Like, I mean, we've been hearing a lot of people say supernatural getting its claws into you kind of a situation. Like, and I think it is because of just how much of a playground it gives people to write in just by its whole premise in general. It allows for so much to happen.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. Alex, I know like I'm familiar with your work, but in terms of like anything you want to share about your cultural background before we kind of get into how it leans into some of the stuff you've written.
Oh, yeah. I mean, ethnically wise, I'm Cuban, Dominican, and Puerto Rican. And so that is kind of like the, if you want to say ethnic landscape. But I mean, I grew up in a very like my parents sacrificed a lot to send me to private school. And so I grew up around a lot of wealthy white people. And so for me, I didn't really realize that was the environment that I realized at the time, but I didn't realize how it kind of informed how I saw myself and how I saw even how I wrote until I got to college and I met my best friend, one of my best friends now, who is Dominican as well.
Okay.
But she grew up very differently than I did. She grew up in a very struggling poor areas and also like around much more diversity than even I did. And so one way that kind of presents itself in my writing is like, which we can get into later, of like, you have an interesting tidbit here on these notes of like assuming characters are white, even in like reader insert fiction. And so for me, even in my head, as a person of color and as I was imagining my own characters always white. And so it became a thing of like, oh, this is like, I have this internal bias in my own mind. And I have this idea of like, it became a thing of like me reframing my own identity in some ways.
It is interesting too, because like as you get into it, like me coming from, Italian parents, but my experience growing up in a place, quote unquote, called Little Italy, like my frame of reference was very much like this urban, this place where like everybody kind of like still sort of maybe talked the language to certain people. Like, there was still some like this mixing of Italian and English but it was kind of like isolated, like in a way within the city. And there were pockets of it, like different cultures in different spots. And then getting the chance to get out of that, go beyond that kind of like helped me later in life, to see the differences happening culturally. Just even like in the city, like that's the thing, like you can be very micro, you know what I mean? And then you got to pull back and see all of that. So that's very interesting too, like you said, your parents, and then what they were able to do to put you in a different situation as opposed to someone that then you met in school later, same like ethnic background, but different growing up situation.
Totally different growing up situation. But I've always identified with you as well because my best friend growing up at that school was Italian. Or is Italian. And so we were always like bouncing back and forth about like those family cultural similarities and food and family and all that kind of stuff. It's very similar.
I had a couple friends who were Puerto Rican, and so like going to their homes was it was very comfortable. It felt very similar to like when you go to an Italian house, eat, like you hear like all this kind of like that kind of stuff that's happening, and then the big families, the big like just like the the times to just like
Big
sit around,
parties.
big parties, just to have like
Talking.
just to talk, and just like have those
Exactly.
around the kitchen table, all that stuff. You know, like it felt
Talking for hours that you're
Yeah.
like, can we go home? It's 3 a.m.
Lay down on the sofa, lay down on the chairs. You'll
let's
be fine.
say goodbye
Oh, no.
15 times before we get out of the house. Kind of a situation. I feel like that.
You're
Yeah.
saying you have to say goodbye to everybody in the house. Then you get to the door, you say goodbye to everybody. You get to the,
car.
you know, yeah, between in the driveway, at the car, at your window.
Yeah. Very, 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 very. It's just culture's always fascinating and too, and like how everything you could think things are very different, but really they're not. Like it's just you're putting a different stamp on it, kind of a situation.
Exactly.
I remember we talked about, I'm sure we talked about this last time, Alex, about that sort of like cultural like food and feed. And
Yes,
feed
how
people.
that was very unfamiliar to you.
Yeah, because I'm like I have like, I don't know. I have a culture somewhere, I guess, but I'm white, like in a white country, and I have no like roots to like anything particularly that I'm aware of. And
I mean, it doesn't mean you don't have culture. It just means that you have
but
different experiences.
Yeah, it's not as easily definable as like you know, like a culture from a certain country or maybe a religious place. It's not that easily definable. But like my growing up is you go home when your friends are having tea. You're not. That's not unless it's already pre-agreed that you're going to eat with them. They're like, it's dinner time. Leave. So y'all were like, yeah, no, you just feed the whole street. I'm like, what do you mean you feed the whole street?
No, they invite you. You just, my mother would be like, have you eaten? Here, eat. Come and sit down.
Exactly.
Eat something. Yeah, it was always
when you
that
walk through
way.
the door. That's what we were like. You want some coffee? You want some? After dinner, we've just had dinner. You want some coffee? Oh, Lord of mercy.
Nope.
7 p.m. It's 8 p.m.
Goodness. Yes.
That's very unfamiliar. So Lily's answer to sharing about cultural background is they are fully Egyptian, born and raised. Egypt is such a beautiful place, honestly. And I say this because I kind of just discovered that myself recently. I used to always try to kind of forget I'm Egyptian because to me, being American was the dream. And telling people I'm from Egypt sounds stupid anyway. Oh my God, that hurts my heart.
I
So
know.
I really did fall in love with my culture and my country all over again. That's why I really did want to come do the interview too, because talking about this place I consider home now more than ever is comforting to me. Honestly, a year ago I wouldn't have ever considered it. I can do words, guys, and thought it was pointless. But I'm happy I identify with it so much now. Oh, that's
beautiful.
That's so lovely. I'm so glad that Lily found that, you know, was able to connect with that, because that must be very lonely to have that.
That's the thing with when you're an immigrant. I mean, I'm a second generation. My mom was the immigrant in the situation. My dad was born here, but his parents, my grandparents, were the ones who immigrated. So what often happens is this thing of like, there are things that in coming to America, you know, obviously America represents that there's that American dream idea, right? If you come to this country, you work hard, you achieve your dreams. For immigrants, it's often, I'm doing this for my kids, so that they can have more opportunities than I did in my home country or whatever, where I feel like, you know, America's the better situation. That obviously that's not always the case, but generally that's like the idea. However, what often happens is like, okay, there are good aspects of the motherland. Maybe there are some things that we leave behind, but maybe there are some things we can still take with us and keep in our cultural identity and our sense of personal identity. And that's what becomes really a struggle for people who are immigrants or people who are second generation, third generation, of like, what do I take with me from the past, from my cultural heritage, and how should I assimilate, and how should I adapt, and what should not be adapted. So it's this thing of, what do I take and what do I leave? And how can I still feel like myself? What is myself?
I'm first generation, so having both parents come here from Italy, I know for them it very much was like better life. So for me, I also think it's based on generations, right? Like the more generations that pass, the less connection you get. So for me, I'm still remembering all of the stories, like all of the, like, this is how we used to do it back then, or this is what we would do. And, this is what happened in Italy. This is how, all of these different things where, as you have that break or that distance, you have to kind of come back and realize what's important. And I think maybe even just in Lily's case too, like, I mean, I know she's on the younger end too. So I think a lot of that could be rebelliousness. Like, like this is what, I need to set my own path. I don't, I'm not really like too concerned with, what happened over there. And so it's lovely to see that I didn't really appreciate Italy until I went back to it. You know what I mean? To like, and I didn't appreciate it when I was little. All I wanted to do was go back home. It took a couple visits to really understand more about the culture and the history, and really being like, oh my God, this is such a beautiful place. These are, beautiful people with their own struggles and different things going on, but still there's so much you can take out of each situation that you're a part of. And I would love to go back. I don't know if we ever will, but I was lucky enough to go back a few times, and just spending time with family there really connected me again to my mom's side of the family, because my dad's side was here. Things didn't go all that great. So, it's nice to go back to family that wants to like bring you into the fold, and you get a whole different vibe and welcoming and love there that, maybe you don't get because of circumstances that put you in another situation that you didn't have any control over. So yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Good old US of A. But so I think probably divert a little bit more back to the fan fiction before we get into some of the other stuff. And I know you might not get much of a chance to read, Alex, because you are writing quite a bit. But what do you look for in fan fiction that you read? Do you look for like a trope, escape, canon compliant, AU? What's kind of your go-to? Like, when you just want to like escape into something. What do you like to read in fan fiction?
Well, I do read a fair bit. Like I have, a
But
lot
you're
of
always
friends on Tumblr
writing.
now.
Where do you find the time? You just not sleep?
I promise I sleep. I promise I do. It's like, but I want to support my friends too.
Yeah.
Because,
Yeah.
I have a lot of like wonderful people who support me in my writing. And so it's a joy for me to be able to, do the same for them, and to read what they're putting out, and, try to see if I notice new people on the come up, who are reaching out to me and stuff like that. But as far as what I love to read, honestly, obviously, you guys know I'm a hopeless romantic. Like that's first and foremost. And so I look to see, honestly, it's not even as much of, I read everything, as far as like, I'll read an AU, I'll read canon compliant, I'll read enemies to lovers, I'll read hunters to lovers. It just is like, to me, are the canon characters in character. That's first and foremost. It's more of like tropes that I steer away from. If the story hooks me, it hooks me. That's it. And if I feel like the characters, their decisions are making sense, and the way they're acting is making sense, going for both canon and, whether it's no see or reader insert, what have you, then I'm in. And is it interesting and creative and, all of that coming into play, then yeah, I'm hooked. I'm in. Whether it's angst, whether it's obviously fluff, smut, all the genres, it could be a combination of all those things, which is often what I write a lot. Mix of
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, like I've gotten into a lot of AUs recently just because it's so fun to see people's creativity. I love a soulmate AU. I love, basically things that are new and creative. I mean, there's nothing new under the sun. Everything is like, but I think as far as what I read, again, I think if it just goes back to like, even if it's an AU setting, do the canon characters feel like they're in character? Is it an interesting premise that I can get behind?
Do you like reading? Does it matter the length of like a fic? Because like, do you tend to Do you like reading an epic? Do you like reading a one shot? Does it not matter? Does it matter how much time you got? Are you like scheduling that in too? Or like what usually do you
You know what? It just goes back to, does it hook me from the premise, from the onset? If it's a one shot, awesome. But literally I've read one shots, like really what's popular on Tumblr now are these really short drabbles that are like 500 words or less. And which is, that's cool. It's easily consumable. You can read that in a couple minutes. But as far as like what's gonna stay in my mind and live in my soul, it's gonna be those series, those epics that are, drawn out character development, story, twists, narrative. You know what I mean?
But that's
character
a skill.
development.
That's a skill if you can do like a 500. If you can hook somebody in 5, I don't think I haven't done that yet. Oh
yeah,
Casey, don't put that down as a challenge. We're not going to do that.
I was just about to say
is so difficult that I barely do it because I forget which author said it. But there's a famous author was like, if I had time to say this in one page, I would, but I don't. So I'm giving you basically a novel of explanation.
Yeah, I do want to challenge myself because I think being able to convey a point in a short word count is, a really useful skill. And I think I don't necessarily want to do it as like a story exercise, but more like a writing skills exercise. Because me and Sandra are doing a word count challenge at the moment, and we've dropped like we did one before, and it was 3K, and that was because Sandra couldn't help plotting all over the place. And then we were like, let's do another one. Fuck it, 1K, 1,000 words. That's all you got. And me and Sandra both came back to each other a few days later, and we were like, does this have to be absolutely porn? Because I can't write porn in 1,000 words. And the other person was like, yes, I've had the exact same thought. I also can't do that. So
it's really tough to put a word limit on yourself.
Yeah.
When it comes to fiction, because you start plotting something or you start with a premise of an idea, and that can spiral from you, and that can turn into this and that, and dialogue and this and that, and it's like, So when it comes to drabble stuff, like I don't do it that often because it is difficult. But it's more like you can give a snapshot of a story, or you can give a scene, and that's enough. But for me, I'm like, I'm always left wanting more.
Right.
Yes.
I'm left of like, okay, but where's the rest of it? I need to know what happens.
I'll read drabbles and stuff on AO3, and inevitably I get to the end and I'm chewing my knuckles going, where's the rest of it? Fuck.
Quite literally. I'm sure I've annoyed so many of my friends of like, ooh, I could see you making this into a series, and they're like, stop it. I'm sure in their mind they're going like, that's awesome, but can we just appreciate part 1? And I'm like, absolutely.
That's hard.
Yeah, we absolutely can.
Hard.
But also, I have questions.
Yeah.
Please fill in the rest of the plot.
And sometimes you have to put a stop. You just have to stop yourself. Like you have to be like, look, no, I know I could. No, I don't want to do this to myself right now.
That's what you need to do. That's what you need to do. These word count challenges are for you. I will say though, I've started writing mine. Sandra hasn't started writing hers yet. And then I started mine and I threw down like 50 words because I had an idea. And then when I sat down to like start, like actually working on the story, I was like, oh my God, 1,000 words seems like that's so many words. Fuck. And then by the time really I finished, I was going, I've only got 300 words left. Fuck. I haven't. Thanks. I don't. So I
did Chevrolet Dean, who she's awesome, Leanne. She did this 500 follower like celebration challenge. It was like a 500 minimum word drabble challenge. Of course, I managed to do one drabble, and then the second time I did it, it turned into like a 4,000 word one shot, of course.
Yeah.
I can't force myself to just keep it down to under 1,000 words.
It's really hard.
Yeah, because then you're like, oh, but I have to put backstory into this, and I have to explain this.
Yes, the backstory.
I have to
the dreaded backstory.
Yeah, that's why me and Sandra do these, because she just does plot for days, and I'm like, no, baby, just a snapshot. But
I'm trying. I'm trying.
You know, it's gonna be so good. It's gonna be so good.
Yeah.
I'm just me and my like 370. I think it's like 374, 376 words I've got left. Me and them are going. Oh, I don't have enough words to. I'm gonna have to start cutting stuff dicks. But it'll be good. It'll be good. I'm excited.
I love it.
For Lily, Casey,
Mm-hmm.
what does she look for in fan fiction that she primarily reads?
So Lily says canon, definitely canon. It's very rare when I find an AU that I will actually enjoy. And even if it's an AU, if I can't clearly tell the characters are still acting like themselves, it's not really my cup of tea. I don't know why. Maybe it's because I have a problem in my own writing where I'm always scared I'm not getting the characters' voices right. I relate so hard, Lily. Like, trust me, we can be besties. So reading canon means I get to enjoy it and research at the same time. Also, angst. It's very rare for me to read anything that doesn't include angst in it, and I think I have only 1 or 2 non-angst fics in my page. Oh, we'd be besties, Lily. I hope your exams are going well, sweetie, because we would be
Yeah. For other like fiction, Alex, have you actively searched for stuff that you feel like represents your culture? And if you did find something, did you find you were happy about it, disappointed? When you did find?
I've never actively searched. I've just kind of stumbled across it, and it's like, for me, it's like stumbling upon gold. I'm like, oh, yes, I love to see this. That's so fun. Let me see what they've done. Because everybody approaches it differently, obviously.
Right.
Because even within one ethnic culture, there are a variety of experiences. Whether you're Black or Cuban or Dominican or Italian or, any other kind of racial ethnic culture, there are so many facets within those experiences. So everybody can get something different from somebody else's story, regardless of their cultural heritage, because everybody has a unique frame of reference, right? So I think my first encounter with readers who were denoted as a certain ethnicity or race was an MCU fandom. I started seeing Black reader, and I'm like, oh, that's cool. Let me see this. But so I'm seeing it actually a lot more often now in SPN fandom, which I find is really cool. Some people have reached out to me and been like, hey, I saw you did that with Midnight Espresso. That's really cool. Would you want to read this? That I started doing this. Whether it was another Latina reader or a Mexican reader specifically, or an Indian reader. And I'm like, oh, this is so cool. I love that I'm doing this more. People are starting to express themselves in that way. And it's one step closer, obviously, to an original character. So it's that in between, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of a tricky gray area of how do you depict the reader character when they have a certain specific facet?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it is. It is difficult. It is, because you want to make your reader character very projectable, and so anybody that grabs it can go, "Oh yes, no, that's me." But then, yeah, I'm glad you're seeing it more though.
Yeah, I am seeing it more, but I think about it this way of obviously all reader characters are written by a specific person and their unique frame of reference. There's not going to be a one size fits all reader character.
Yeah.
You have to imbue some kind of personality onto this character insert, or else there's no story. So we're basically writing OCs without naming them, regardless. Whether you decide to describe them in whatever which way or not, you're still creating a character when you get down to it. I think that's what's something that people kind of forget.
Yeah.
At least readers, maybe. People who just read that don't write, they don't sometimes there's this disconnect where you don't get look, I'm still writing a character, regardless if I name her or not.
I'm not writing a first person camera. Literally, it's still a person.
Right.
Yeah.
This is not a first person video game. I'm still creating a story, whether you identify with every aspect of her story or not. I'm still having to create personality traits, and it doesn't always reflect who I am personally.
Yeah.
I'm writing a character for this particular story. Every reader character of mine is different for that reason.
Yeah.
whether she's plus size, whether she's just a normal reader insert, or whether she is Latina, POC, whatever.
Yeah.
Sorry, I forgot where the question was originally.
No. But I think, and we'll get into a little bit more with the reader part too later. But I almost feel like a lot of it, like with the reader insert, it's more about, and I think some people want to read it this way, like what's happening to the reader, how are they reacting, but kind of blank slate everything else. I almost wonder if that's like what some people want out of reader insert, and I think that's when, like you said, we go into reader insert / maybe a little bit like original, like, you know, those parts of it that make it feel more than just a scenario or an imagine or something along those lines, I feel, you know, and I think that's like where it kind of like branches out a little bit more, because I've been thinking about that a lot more lately with reader insert, especially how, you know, back in the day, it was frowned upon, you know, it wasn't really a thing. And then it's like, it's become this thing, and it has a lot of layers to it, and how it can be, just like when we talk about like how people post things on AO3, you could take it a lot of different ways. It's however you decide to do it. And that's, I think, where the magic comes from different writers and how they decide to do it. How they take that challenge on, kind of a thing. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Casey, Lily.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah. So, in answer to if Lily has ever actively searched for fiction that represents their cultural identity, she says, Lily is she, her, yes?
Yes.
Yes, okay. She says, none, not one, never ever. Fan fiction anyway. I've kind of searched for it the best I can, but it isn't something that people write. Even Arab writers will write American characters. And I think it's because that's just what we've always seen. And if we're writing in English, it's mostly because we grew up on English channels, Disney Channel, Nickelodeon, etc. Maybe even went to English schools. I went to a British one, so my English is even better than my Arabic. It's a little disappointing to know I could do more with showing the world how life is in Egypt nowadays. Hopefully I'll get better at that, and then maybe I'll see more fics from people because we desperately need it. This is not an area that I'm particularly well versed in, I have to say, but like Arab reader inserts is not something that I think I've ever come across.
No, me either.
That, like, on the face of it, that is very sad, but also it's not like there isn't the information out there. But I guess, as Lily says, even Arab writers write Americanized characters, so yeah,
like that bias, I think, that you were talking about too, Alex, that we don't even realize sometimes, you know, like it's in the brain. It's
especially when you're, you know, you're the ethnic minority, you know, so why would you think of yourself first?
Yeah.
It's that kind of situation.
Yeah.
Even though I was born here, I've still spent my whole life watching American TV and shows, and it's diversity has only been cool for a little while, you know.
Yeah, it's very new.
It's a very new concept, and so for Gen Z and people who are younger, like, that's so much in their face that they're like, of course it should be this and that. But for us, I feel like, even though I'm a bit younger than you guys, I'm still like millennial. I'm not that cut off. And so for me, I grew up on 90s and early 2000 shows and movies and books and stuff. And so it was starting to be a thing, but it wasn't. There was very much a divide between, here are white shows and here are black shows and here are Latino shows and here are Asian shows.
Well, because there were networks that kind of built that up too. Like, you know, I mean, I remember like BET, like, you know, going to BET for like, you know, Black Entertainment Television, and then like the different shows that they would create, you know, for that audience. And then you've got like smaller networks, like, I don't know, like Fox. I remember Fox TV was like, had like a lot of like different news shows. And then there was like, what was the CW before? Was it WB or UPN? There was like UPN, WB. Like, I remember there's this whole like, and there was a lot of stuff on there that was, you know, you could tell it was like trying to provide something more of a minority, like, you know, like this stuff is for you. Like, you know, you don't have to just watch. I remember Dallas Dynasty, like those kinds of shows, like from the 80s, and like, you know, that kind of stuff that was very soap opera. But then there's so much more of it now because I think to streaming, I think helps a lot too. It provides a lot more avenues for that they're not pigeonholed into, well, we can only have 4 new shows this season by this network and they're only going to approve so many. And what are they going to take chances with? Probably not much, unless they think it's, oh, this is a definite, we're going to get a lot of people watching this show. So I think it helps to have so many different ways for media to reach people now that we didn't have even for in the 90s. It was still limited. It really, I think, early 2000s is when stuff started to change a lot, be a lot more available and varied.
I know we were talking about it, Sandra, as well. Like a lot of shows that portrayed different ethnicities, it was like almost mocking as well. Like a haha, look how different it is kind of thing, and not
a lot of stereotypes. A lot of playing to that kind of stuff, and a lot of like jokey, gimmicky stuff that, you know, now we recognize it and we see, oh, that's cringe. But back then it was their attempt at diversity.
And I mean, I can remember, like, we didn't have all the different like network shows and stuff that you guys had, but I can remember, like, sort of as I was a teenager, a couple of shows that featured like Muslim families, and they were very much like, it was very much about all of the differences between like a Muslim family household versus a white family household, and oh, ha ha ha, isn't this so different, and blah blah blah. And it just, looking back at it now, hella cringe, like so gross. But that was just what it was back in the late 90s, early 2000s.
We sort of got, I think, into the reader insert a little bit. And I know you've written this. So, I mean, I know we can already get into it, but because I know you've used like reader characters that have, you know, concretely described a specific culture, or, you know, identity or ethnicity. You know, why did you decide to do that? What challenges did you find in that, if any? Because I know Midnight Espresso is one of like the best examples I could think of, you know, that you've done that with.
I mean, that's the first one that I attempted to do. And it really just came from a premise of like, and we've talked about it before, of like, what if Dean had a Latina girlfriend? Like, that to me was such a fun idea. And it wasn't even to get me on the page. It was just to like express my ethnicity and my specific point of view.
Right.
And how I think that Dean would benefit from that relationship and vice versa. And, you know, as I wrote more, as it became a series, because it wasn't ever supposed to be a series, it was just supposed to be a fun one shot.
It never is it? It's never supposed to be a series.
It never is. I think that one shot was even like, I don't know, 7 or 8K or something crazy. And that should have given me a clue of like, oh, I have more to say on this. Because even that didn't feel done. It was just like, oh yeah, Dean got to try Cuban espresso. Cool. But it was also like a thing of like, oh, there's something here to explore.
Yeah.
And then that became a way of me being able to explore like body insecurity, and like, it was like simultaneously like me exploring the fun sides of myself and also the sides that maybe needed to be healed a little bit with the help of dashing, rugged, good-looking characters. So my favorite
Dean
comfort
Winchester.
characters.
Yeah, Dean Winchester helps out with that.
Doesn't he? He really does. But also from this idea that like Dean loves women and he loves all kinds of women. And I think that's why like in SPN fandom, a lot of us talk about Cassie and how we wish Cassie would have been brought back in some capacity, because that was such an interesting relationship really early on in the show.
Yeah. Season 1. I mean, come on. Yeah, it was like, yeah.
And I mean, I once got an anon in my inbox saying like, oh, I've heard that, and this could be, this was an anonymous person, so maybe this is true, maybe it's not, or whatever, I don't know. But they came in my inbox saying like, oh, I've read somewhere where Dean wouldn't date a black girl. And I'm like, and they're like, yeah, but what about Cassie? And I'm like, yeah, clearly. What show have they been watching?
Yeah.
That's it was right there, guys. It was season 1. It was right fucking there.
Right. And it wasn't even and what was interesting about that is she was the first one that he ever tried to have a serious relationship with and tell the family secret to.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that whole
Absolutely.
episode was about, interracial relationships.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yep. It was, it was very, yeah. Fucking hell.
Yeah. And so, I'm sorry, what was the original question?
Oh no, just like the challenges
thought-
you might have found too,
Oh,
like in
yes.
writing.
Yeah. And so, particularly with Midnight Espresso, the challenge became of like, how much of me and my culture do I put in this? How much can I do with this character while still having it be technically a reader insert? And I think now it's towed more the line of OC than reader just by the nature of it.
Yeah.
But honestly, it just gives a new experience, I think, for
Yeah.
people on the reader insert thing. Like, obviously, it's not going to be the definition of reader insert to a T.
Right.
Because she's also plus size, there's an element of describing physical traits as well as personality traits and traits of ethnicity, but that also allows me to do more, honestly,
Yeah.
with the character and to have interesting, fun situations of like, okay, she's making him paella,
Mm-hmm.
and that comes from Spain, but it is a thing that hasn't passed down to like people who are Cuban, because a lot of Cuban people came from Spain and Italy as well.
Yeah.
And so there's a through line in different things of like, again, going back to themes of food and family and tradition and the things that are good about our culture that we can pass on.
Yeah. And giving it to somebody who doesn't have it, right? Like that's the thing that I like too, is like, I think when you talk about the boys, them not having a lot of those experiences, having a reader that gives them those is just very comforting, and it's this loving aspect of it that I think reader inserts tend to want to do anyway, when you get into that part of it.
Yeah, that was the big thing with Dean in that series, that obviously he's been the one between Sam and Dean who's really had to be the mom and the dad. He hasn't really had a lot of people take care of him. And so that was also a big aspect of that series, was like having someone who takes care of him as much as he takes care of others.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
tries to do the same for her. And so she brings that kind of nurturing aspect, not in a motherly way, in a partner way, but in a way that like is like, I've got you, and all of these other senses too.
Yeah.
And so that was like, yeah, there were challenges in that of like, how far can I go with people still being willing to read it?
I would ask you the same question, Sandra, about your Some Sunny Day series, because I think like I know why you made the choices, because that's very much a Sandra insert. It's not so much a reader insert. It's a Sandra insert.
No.
But did you have any of those challenges of like putting like your culture into that, and the same as Alex, like knowing sort of how much to put in and sort of where to draw the line and stuff?
I think because I went into it as an original character, I don't think I had that same, like I already knew that I was going full on. Like, so to me, it wasn't necessarily the challenge. I think I've run into situations, I just recently, Alex, with Wash, Rinse, and Repeat that I did, where I started as a reader insert. And then I was like, no, there's too much about this character that feels like I need to give them more parts of them to, that's going to be like a backstory and, how they approach or feel about certain things that I don't think you can do in I think longer stories make it harder to do. So as I was, again, the plotting, and you think it's going to be a one shot and it isn't, you realize you've got to put more into that character to make people want to stick around, I feel, or else then I think it is just a matter of, this happens, this happens, this happens. But why is this happening?
Yeah.
How's this person reacting to it and stuff? Yeah, I didn't have that. Some Sunny Day, like I said, like you said, like it's a Sandra insert. Like it's fully indulgently a Sandra insert. And I was just like, no, I'm gonna put my mama in it.
I love that.
She's gonna be the sweetest little, even like, we're gonna fan fiction the hell out of my mom and make her the sweetest little person ever. And, I can know all about the other things, but then giving her a little bit of sass and all of those things that I've experienced with a little Italian mom that I wanted Dean to experience. You know, I was like, here, you get this little Italian mom that maybe kind of thinks you're kind of cute too. And, you know, maybe wouldn't have minded at some point, you know, back in the day. But, you know, okay, I guess I'll let my daughter have him, kind of a situation. But
I love those. I
that
love
kind of
those
a thing.
relations, those kinds of,
Yeah.
yes, I love those tidbits. And I loved reading that series because I did feel like I learned more about you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
got
I
to
was
know
pretty
better.
much out there. Yeah, my husband's not very happy with what happened to the husband in that. But like, it's not you, baby. That's the one character that is
That
not
is
you
the
in this.
actual different character. Yeah, exactly. That's so funny.
But no, yeah, no, I
Oh,
appreciate
you
that.
knew something else, though.
Yeah.
I'm having a very similar to Midnight Espresso, but different fandom now because I got a request to pair Soldier Boy with a person of color.
Oh, okay.
Oh my god.
Mm-hmm.
Oh wow, I handled that really poorly. Fuck. No, not that like
is the reaction. That is the expected reaction.
That seems
you are a brave soul
because he's already got so he's
oh no, I don't even like where would you even start with that? Because like
exactly.
Have you gotten an idea?
Soldier Boy's gross.
Yeah. Have you gotten an idea?
So, I got this request months ago.
Okay.
It started off just as an ask in my inbox.
Mm-hmm.
Like inviting me to contemplate it. And I was like, oh my God, exactly. Can of worms. Where do you start?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I had to start with the idea of, okay, you're saying a woman of color, a person of color, but you have to assign an ethnicity to it because what even is a person of color?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Like you have an idea of it in your head, right? When you hear the word, but what is it really?
Yeah.
Because everybody has a color.
Mm-hmm.
Even white is a color.
Yeah.
So you have to go, okay, when you say person of color, I know you mean somebody who's black or brown. I get that's what you're going for. However, there are a lot of cultures and races that are black and brown. Like tan is not a race. Tan is not an ethnicity.
Yeah. It's a very as a phrase is a very
very misleading.
It always strikes me as like it's another like a not quite white supremacy, but almost like with like that white sense of entitlement to go, well, we're the default and everyone else is a person of color. And I'm like, lads. No, we got like Eastern Europe a little bit and like Scandinavia, and that's it. That's what everyone else. This is our bit, and everyone else we're like, I don't.
Yeah, exactly.
And I know it's one of those like politically correct, like it's an attempt to not be offensive, but I'm like, but you could just say the ethnicity of person and not just do that.
Yeah, so that's how I've kind of addressed this by going, okay, I get this is what you're talking about. However, a lot of cultures could be incorporated into that, right? So I'm just going to go, what is my personal experience? And so that's how I've chosen to do it. So I've already written it, drafted it.
Okay.
I actually released the first chapter on Patreon. Literally yesterday. But it's called Unravel Me.
Okay.
But so the reader character is Afro-Latina.
Okay.
So yes, kind of self-indulgent in that she is Cuban and Dominican and black. However, it's drawing from my experience, but she's not me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's like I have to draw from that experience because and this is one of our questions that we wanted to talk about was like, how do you write about a culture that is not your own?
Yeah.
Can you and should you and when should you?
Yeah.
But for this one, because it's so delicate with Soldier Boy, I felt that I had to write from my personal experience.
Yeah.
And also adapting from like my friends and people who are closest to me, experience that I have firsthand knowledge of.
Because he's already a bowl of fish hooks. He's already so much.
Literally,
yeah.
It's already a lot to wrangle. Let alone writing another series. Let alone writing another series where he has to show character growth, and it's like, how do you get from point A to point B to point C with this character regardless, let alone throwing all of this added element into the mix. So that was actually really difficult for me writing this series. Like, it took me months.
I'm gonna have to start reading that soon. See how you challenged yourself in that one. That's a challenge.
Oh God. Yeah, you'll see. From the very first chapter, it becomes very apparent that this is going to be a struggle.
Yeah.
But yeah, by then 3 chapters will be out on Patreon, but that's how I kind of like stagger it.
Right.
Give people an incentive to subscribe.
Absolutely.
Because then you can get the next 2 chapters, right? So, but it was very, very difficult. I almost was like, should I even write this?
Yeah.
Like, do you just want to see Soldier Boy say a bunch of racist shit? Or are you actually looking for the character growth? Like, what is your kind of motivation for sending me this question? Because you know that you know that I am, an ethnic minority. And you know that I have kind of a vehicle in order to write this.
Right. Yeah.
But I also, like, there are things I don't want to write, right?
Yeah, of course. Like, nobody wants to put themselves in the, as you say, it's not you, but it's very close to your experience. You've got to write what you know. Nobody wants to put themselves in that firing line and go, yes, I'm going to write a fic where Soldier Boy is awful to a me adjacent person. That's going to be no.
Right. So I had to really toe that line of like, how do I do this and have it be fulfilling for me and fun creatively?
Yeah. Yeah.
That actually leads into something I wanted to ask you both. I am gonna, obviously we've got Lily's answer to the read it insert question. But do you guys ever is there ever an element of like fear of like putting yourself out there, even though it's not necessarily you, it's an OC or it's like you adjacent read it insert, but is there a fear of like being that open and transparent with something that is so obviously very dear to you and very much a core part of who you are, that you are going to put it out on the internet and people potentially are going to be fucking gross about it?
Oh yeah. And I have
had
had situations where so like there's an interesting thing within Latin cultures, for example. Language is a big thing because different Hispanic cultures use different words for certain things. And so they'll look at something and be like, that's not how you would say that, or that's not real Spanish, or what have you. So this is just a very small example. And I myself am not like completely fluent. I understand a lot and I can speak conversationally, but even I struggle on certain things. However, I knew this was correct because this came from my Dominican friend. This was slang, Dominican slang that I included in a one shot or one part of the Midnight Espresso verse, for example. And I got such a flaming comment on AO3 from this guest person who was from a Latin American country. And she basically like ripped me a new one and saying like, this is a horrible, like just because you think Spanish curse words doesn't make you Hispanic and like all of that kind of stuff. And I was like, okay, first of all, this is slang. Obviously, you're not going to know, this is not going to look right to you because it's slang. It's not part of your culture. This is Dominican slang that was created in DR. You're from another country where this doesn't even track with you. And you're also like, it's just, there's a lot of that within Hispanic culture and kind of gatekeeping of like, well, you're not really.
Is it like an
Latina.
authenticity thing? Like, are they just feeling like you're not? Yeah.
Yes. So there's an aspect of that.
I just want to say,
so there's always a little bit of fear in putting out this kind of stuff for me.
Yeah, of course, especially on the back of experiences like that. I just want to say as well, if you're gonna do that to an author, do it with your whole fucking chest. Put your goddamn username out there so we can have a conversation. Don't hide behind a guest or an anonymous account. If you've got shit to say, with your whole goddamn chest. I am over anonymous keyboard warriors that think they can just saunter in and be like, well, you suck massive dicks, and then just fuck off. And then I'm like, you come back here and argue with me. There's a conversation to be had here, and I'm going to yell. You come back here and be yelled at with your whole chest.
Oh my God, yeah. anonymous on Tumblr is, I wish I could. Well, I mean, I've gone back and forth of like disabling anon, people who can send me anon messages or not, because I've had that recently. Not about like this kind of stuff, but just in general, like people who think they can talk to you any kind of way because they're anonymous.
Yeah,
And it's
no.
like, if you want to see it done better, you write it.
Yeah.
You could have
Yeah.
clicked away from this and not tried to ruin somebody else's day.
Yeah, because
could
you
have
always end
just
up remembering
not read it and walked away.
that comment sticks with you more than like the 100, great comments that you get. You're going to be focusing on that, and that's not. That's a.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry that you had to experience that. I am angry on your behalf, very much so.
It's par for the course when you post stuff publicly.
Yeah.
So it's like, I've been doing this for a long time. You develop a thick skin over time, but sometimes things get to you and they do find their way under the armor, Yeah. And it's like, oh man, but you guys don't realize I spent like weeks on this, hours and hours, and I'm finally posting it.
And you probably debated the use of that
say,
word too. You're like, is this accurate? Like, like double checking, like you said, with your friend. And like, because I know I'm that way too. Like if I put Italian in there, my Italian is like, I'm going for the quote unquote actual Italian, or I'll put in the slang that I'm used to, but that's in no way in any way, shape or form the same as like having somebody come at you with, you're not, questioning you at your authenticity is horrible in so many ways for somebody to do that. Yeah. And like Casey said, to do it in a very cowardice way is not.
Yeah, if you're going to say something, as Kevin Hart was saying, like you said to Casey, say it with your chest.
Yeah.
With your whole fucking chest. I am so I am not going to detract us on a political rant in any fucking capacity, but there's a certain someone in the last 8-ish years that has made like being a bitch online just like a national fucking pastime, it seems like now. And you can just go online and you just say whatever the fuck you want, and it's fine because this certain someone goes online and says whatever the fuck they want. And I'm like, no, you fucking you come back here and be argued with, motherfucker. But I've always hated like anonymous hate and like guest account hate on AO3, because like, no, if you have something to say with your whole fucking chest about it, don't hide that. It's bullshit is what it is.
I would never do that to somebody else.
No, I wouldn't. Like the back button looks different for everybody, or the dislike. I love that when it goes around Tumblr, like, oh, where's the dislike button? Well, it looks different on different browsers, but maybe if you do this, just fucking leave, just scroll on. You don't have to like, if it's not inherently problematic, like there's some things that you do have to like, but that's usually on like Facebook or social media, that things are problematic that you have to be like, actually, no. But if it's just a fake and a star and you're like, I don't vibe with this, move the fuck on. Like, you're
quite literally.
We're not compelling you to stay here. Off you pop.
No one is forcing you to sit there and read it. No one's forcing you to type out that comment. No one's forcing you to send that author and ask.
Yeah.
So if you think you can do it better, you write something instead of tearing other people down.
Yeah.
It's really quite simple. But everybody, the internet is a wild west.
Everyone's got a fucking opinion. And again, persons who shall remain nameless have quite literally normalized just yelling that on the internet. Whether people want to hear it or not, you just moving on. Moving swiftly on, because I will haul us all the way off track and we're in a time crunch, people. So Lily's answer to like deciding to give their reader characters like specific descriptors that entrench them in a cultural identity or ethnicity. She says, definitely, I only do so if I'm writing a specific type of reader in mind, whether that's ethnicity or sensitive reader or party girl reader. I usually give a specific voice to the reader then. I actually once read Alex say that she writes all her ex-readers as if they're OCs, in the sense that she gives them their personality. And that's basically what I do too. P.S. Sorry if that wasn't her who said it. I forgot whose post it was. Was that you, Alex?
That was definitely me.
That does sound like
it sounded like you. So I was like,
ago.
I'm pretty sure I heard about this the last time too. So like that was Alex.
Oh yeah, yep. I've definitely been vocal about that.
Yeah.
I try to stay away from giving them nicknames other than the usual pet names Sam and Dean would use. Nicknames are the bane of my fucking life, people. I don't write Reddit insert that much anymore, but it's difficult. If you don't want to write the Y/N, it's hard. It's hard.
Yeah.
Okay. As for the culture, definitely. I write my reader in my love bomb fic. I can do words. As a virgin, and she's totally inexperienced, which is almost 99% of the time the usual in Egypt or any Middle Eastern country, because we're predominantly Muslim. In Silence in the City, I also added a lot of Egyptian cuisine, because again, 99% of women in Egypt know how to cook, because the food here is just so incredibly rich and such a big part of the country.
Mm-hmm.
There's not a lot of challenges
love that.
I love that. I love it when I can like get that kind of, food's such a great connector, and you can just be like, oh my god, that's so good. I love when Sandra does it as well. And I'm like, oh my god,
Yes.
that sounds so nice. My autism will let me eat. There's not a lot of challenges in writing my own culture for the writing part. The challenge comes when I post it. I feel so weird. American culture and Arab culture cannot be more different. And so I'm putting this totally different and new, not that new, but still, idea out into the world and just waiting for feedback that it doesn't seem stupid. Yeah, that's what we were talking about, the fear, and it's very soul bearing. I mean, it's you're putting a part of yourself out there when you write anything. It's it's part of you.
Exactly.
But those things are it's so precious, I think, that I don't.
It's an added personal element that might not even be present in an original character.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're already on the trapping of this is its own thing, it's an original character. But it's still ascribing a part of yourself, whether it's, describing a, particular race or ethnicity or not. But with the reader insert, there is that kind of inherent of this should be a blank slate, but I'm not doing that fully. I'm describing it something specific, so that already makes it other, and that already makes it a risk of people are either A, not going to read it, or B, they're going to be like, ugh. In some capacity. And so it's like, all right, whoever's along for the ride is along for the ride. I have my friends at this point who are like, oh, that's cool, I'm going to check that out.
Or like you said, if they know you as a writer, they're gonna trust you on the journey.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We all have our read or die friends, and occasionally those read or die friends have limits, and we respect them.
Yes,
exactly. I'm not expecting everybody to read everything that I write. That's ridiculous. Or to enjoy everything that I write. That's also ridiculous. It's just a matter of like, sometimes it just kind of feels like throwing spaghetti at the wall and seeing what sticks. But it's also more than that. It's of like, hey, I just want to try something new, because I've spent so much time writing the same kinds of things. Or not, I want to challenge myself. I want to express myself in a different creative way. And so here's a way that I'm doing that. And let's see what happens. Like with this Soldier Boy series, it's like, all right, let's see what happens. Rub my hands together.
Have you finished it, or are you still writing it as you're posting?
I've drafted it, but I wouldn't say that it's finished, because it needs a lot of the latter chapters need a lot of editing. I've spent more time on the first half, obviously, because that's what's going to be posted shortly.
Yeah.
But I still think there are kinks in the middle that need to be ironed out, and that's something that I'll do as I go through this process of posting.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, I just wish I had more time to spend on it, honestly, before I post it. I don't know. Maybe I just put too much pressure on myself, but it's like, now that I have the Patreon, I feel like this thing of like, I have to keep
the content,
putting something new. Yeah. So that's part of it. A lot of it is I've been going through like a lot in my personal life and my work life, and that has been like, I wish I could devote more time to my creative pursuits, and to making this. Yeah, I know. It's like I'm a broken record, but yeah, just with this story in particular, like I want to take more time with it, because it feels more important, just due to the thing of like, I am representing a culture, even though it's my own. Like there is a pressure of authenticity there. And there is a pressure of like,
Getting
having
into some
something
deep
additional
stuff.
to say.
There's some deep
Exactly,
stuff.
getting to the deep stuff, having something more to say than just entertainment.
Yeah, because it's not it's not going to there aren't going to be the fun parts are not to be had throughout this story. You know there's going to be a lot of like stuff that's like that's going to like
Friction.
really have an issue. I mean, when and just a slight tangent, just because Soldier Boy, like I remember watching shows early 70s, like All in the Family was a big thing, Archie Bunker, and his biases, his just not understanding other people, other cultures, very set in his ways. And it's almost like you've got to, how do you make that character, first of all, likable or understandable? I think understandable is a key part of it, because maybe not always likable, but understandable to some degree. And that's a lot to do with that character. And then, yeah.
They put my granddad in an American sitcom in the 70s.
I know. Isn't that amazing? Yeah.
So weird. He never mentioned that. That's so strange. You thought he would have mentioned it, but no. Yeah.
I did want to get through a couple more of these, because I know we just hinted a little bit about the ingrained bias that, you know, when you started writing, and I think you even said this, like you kind of, or reading maybe just this picture, right, of like, this is what the character looks like. What ways, when did you kind of feel like you broke out of that in your writing? And it wasn't really like, did you have an aha moment with that? And like, how are you doing that? I know you mentioned a couple other things, but how else are you doing that? How are you getting out of that sort of like, no,
Yeah,
I do expand, you know?
that's a great question. I think honestly, it started for me when I started writing reader insert characters and like some small tidbits of like hair, describing hair versus describing blushing. Just the warmth of cheeks rather than seeing the pinkness, because obviously on certain skin tones you're not going to see pinkness. You're not going to actually see blushing in someone. You can describe the feeling that the character is feeling. And hair is really another key thing, because there are different textures of hair that are exemplified in often different ethnicities and races. And, you know, and I love describing hair, but I've had to figure out a way of doing it that is not race or ethnic specific in certain cases. So I can still do it. It just takes some finessing, you know? And so that's how I've started to retrain my brain of like, no, don't automatically assume your own character is white, you know? Not just for me as a writer, obviously, but for the people reading. And so like with those two key things, my brain started to shift as a writer, which is kind of odd that those are the two, but like, I don't know, for me, that was like the most tangible. Because obviously body physical description, that could be anybody. That's not, you know, but when it comes to skin tone and hair, those can be very particular.
Yeah. And the plus size aspect of it, was that something too that like when did you decide to explore that more? Was it Midnight Espresso or was it?
It was.
Okay.
It was Midnight Espresso. And then since then, I've gotten more requests for plus size reader. And I think that's pretty cool. And
I love that.
Done that. Yeah, I've done that a couple more times now. Actually, there was one person who requested both of these stories that I was able to do that with. One of them is If I Stay, which is another Dean pairing with a plus size reader. He's actually a firefighter in that one as well.
Okay.
Sensing a theme.
Well, that one was fully requested. That idea did not come from me. That totally came from this person who's been following me for a long time. And she joined my Patreon specifically so that she could request this story.
Nice.
And she had like the whole plot outline. I was like, oh, wow, that's a lot. Okay, let me see how I can do this for you. And so that became If I Stay. And then the second idea that she requested was the story that became 10 Till Midnight, which is another Dean matched with a plus size reader. You know, you're sensing a theme. And that's actually Professor Dean with a student reader. But I
Okay.
made her a grad
Oh.
student reader because I was like, I don't want to go that taboo. So let me age her up
That's
a little
good.
bit. Grad
There we
student, I can work with that.
There we go.
Yeah.
Good.
So but there's still that element of
Yeah.
like area, but at least, you know, it's not so much about the age gap, because one thing I'm not a huge fan of is age gap. But I will play with that kind of gray area of like, you know, they're of compatible age, but it's just that one dynamic, that power dynamic. But that's
Yeah.
also gonna be a series that I later expand that into, hopefully this summer.
It was
Great.
just supposed to be a one shot. That's how they
Yeah.
get you. That's how
But
they
with
get
that
you.
one I had a feeling that people were gonna request more of that just
Yeah.
because of where I ended it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just a lot more that can be done with that idea. Like if you ever do read that one shot, maybe you'll see. But
Heck yeah.
where that kind of ends is that they're both kind of like, is she into me? Is he into me? Really? Does he see me like that?
Mhm.
And so and that actually allowed me to explore more of myself of like the English nerd, the classic lit nerd side of my brain. Especially because I do teach English, and so or have
Yeah.
taught English, and so I love classic lit, and that allowed me to be my nerdy self. Whereas he's like a mythology professor. That part she requested, that he's a mythology professor, and I was like, okay, I can rock with this. I can do something with this. This is really so yeah. I like playing with the plus size reader, because that just allows me to go like, she could either be there could be aspects of a personality that are super confident, but there can be vulnerability there as well.
Yeah.
And you know how Dean plays off those things could be really fun. So that's how I like to do that with Dean in particular. But other Jackals characters could be really fun with that too. Like even Soldier Boy, that could be really fun. Or Russell Shaw or Orland, like lots of and I've done that through headcanons, because there are some, I got a headcanon request that was like how Jackal's characters would deal with their partners or their girlfriend's body insecurity. And so that was a fun one to explore in headcanon form. And I was like, man, any one of these could be a full story if I decided to like dive into that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I like exploring the plus size reader too, because I feel like that one cuts a wide swath too when it comes to readership. People who are like wanting to dive into those kinds of stories, because obviously that's not ethnicity, that's just, or race, that's just like anybody
just outside
you don't
of
even have
the
to be
like
plus sized.
yeah, like what
Just
people
if you've
expect.
ever dealt with exactly, and if you've ever dealt with body insecurity, which I feel like we all have at some point, there's always something to get from that.
Absolutely. Yeah. Did Lily have a for that one? I can't remember.
So outside of the collective ingrained bias, they replied, not really. I tried Arab once with STC, which I believe is their Silence in the City fic. And never again. Not because I don't want to, just the things I'm working on now don't really follow with it. I would like to repost Love Bomb one day though and finish it.
Okay.
Nice.
The next question I think just dives right into what I recently podficked for you, Alex. Creating original characters with a distinct cultural ethnic identity, and especially like outside, like of like what you've done. Can you talk about that experience for you? Because we're talking about it's the second part of the Honorable Choice Outlander. Is that correct in the series? Can you talk about the story and then like how that came about, and then what you kind of like, because this is like you, I'm assuming like on the other end of it now, right? Like, what do I do with this situation? Yeah.
You want to talk about fear? This was fear. So yeah, actually, this idea came to me from participating in Jackals versus Bingo, and thanks to both of you for getting me hooked on this, because now I'm on my second square bingo sheet.
Congratulations. Nice
Wow.
job.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Nice job.
Me and
Thank
Sandra
you.
are
But yes, I
sitting
started
here
with
with our bingo cards in folders going, no one will
Did you do a 3x3, 4x4, 5x5? What did you do?
I did what you suggested and started with a 3x3.
Okay, good. Good girl.
And then I did another, and I'm doing another 3x3.
Okay, good.
But
yeah.
Oh, that's
on the
great.
first, and on the first 3x3, she gave me a Western AU.
Okay.
This is Kim.
We love Kim.
Winchester's Witch,
Yes.
who is phenomenal. She's
Mhm.
awesome. And I love the group that participates, and all of them are so cool.
Absolute
All of the
kick-ass
writers
group
who
of people.
participate all of the writers who participate in this, they're super awesome, so fun to connect with. But yeah, so one of the squares was the Western AU, and I was like, oh yes, I've always wanted to do something like this. And I was like, okay, do I go like Yellowstone with it, because I have been watching Yellowstone? But then I am, of course, a big kid at heart, and I rewatched Spirit, the Stallion of the Cimarron.
No.
And this, I love this movie. It is a perfect movie. But it weirdly got my brain turning on this idea, and I was like, okay, what if Dean was a member of this military unit, and he comes across a Native American woman from the Lakota tribe, and she has infiltrated his army base to save this horse that they have captured for their military efforts. And this was going on at the time. And so from this spun just an Alice in Wonderland tunnel of research, like so much research that I did into the time period, into obviously the Lakota tribe, because I even had the idea of like, okay, should I do this? Not even can I do this, but should I do this?
Right, because there's a hesitancy, I would imagine, for lots of reasons. Yeah.
For lots of reasons. I mean, yes, it's just quote unquote is just fan fiction. But when you are writing, whether it's fan fiction or original fiction or not, if you are writing about race or ethnic culture that is not your own, there's a kind of ethical responsibility to try and do no harm. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Because the worst thing that could happen from a writer's perspective is somebody from that culture say, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah. Even like you never know.
This doesn't represent us at all.
Yeah, you're putting it out on the internet. It can end up anywhere, well out of your hands. So I would say that's fan fiction, original fiction, any art that you make, do no harm, 100%. And it is not,
and especially. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, if you are writing outside of like your experience, if you're writing a different a different culture or a different religion or a different ethnicity, it is not your place to start highlighting like issues and things like that. That's not your voice in my opinion. You shut up about it, because it's not your voice, isn't the one that matters in that moment, personally. So yeah, no, you gotta, brave lady. I could never.
And also because obviously Native American tribes in history have been marginalized and oppressed and violated. So there's also that aspect of it to you really want to get things right. And how you present certain things and certain narratives. And so I was like, okay, how can I do this in a way that you still get an authentic story, but it still has the rom-com aspect, and it still has, is like a meaningful story, but is doing it in a respectful way. And so that was my whole goal. And again, I did so much research on, obviously I looked at maps of the time period. I watched YouTube videos of Lakota tribe members just telling stories from their culture, which was super cool and interesting. I got the cadence of how they spoke in these videos, and just how they told stories, and what was important to their culture. and even obviously down to the food, down to how they dressed. What is the layout of inside a teepee? What is the day-to-day life look like?
Yeah.
How were the relations between obviously um, them and military personnel? Like how much do they interact back then? What was the landscape as far as like this particular region of the world in the Old West at this time? So the time period is 1872 is when I chose to set it, because I was following kind of the loose timeline of the movie
Mm-hmm.
with Spirit, and kind of with at least that first chapter following the plot of the movie in a lot of
Mhm.
ways.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, basically by the end of that first chapter, Dean finds himself in conflict with his own moral. He finds himself very quickly in a moral dilemma between like what his duty demands as an
Mhm.
officer, as a
Mhm.
military officer, as a captain. He's a captain,
Mm-hmm.
and what he's being forced to do, not only to Mila, who is the Native American woman, the Lakota woman that they've captured, and her horse
Mm-hmm.
that she is here to rescue.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
And so she even saves him from one of his own officers
Mm-hmm.
who tries to abuse her.
Yeah.
And she ends up escaping her and the horse. And so it's his duty to, track her down. But in doing so, he ends up having to realize like it's more right for me as a man that I save her than me keep my career and the thing that I've
Yeah.
built.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
That's so
And
Dean
so
as well.
it is very Dean, right? And so he ends up sacrificing um his career and his reputation and his sense of honor from that perspective of duty in order to save her
Yeah.
Hmm.
and the horse. And so
Yeah.
it becomes this journey that the two of them are forced to go on, kind of on the run together now.
Mm-hmm.
But there's still mistrust from her end, of course. And like, she's like, who is this white man who's done this thing for me? Why would you do that for me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I appreciated that story a lot too, because like you said, it does do that fish out of water. People from two different worlds come together. That like very personal aspect of it, you can find the humor and the this is a thing, this is what you do kind of a situation. But then I loved too that you used Colonel Sanders.
Asmodeus.
Asmodeus. I had a lot of fun pretending to be him because he's such an ass, and I just felt like you
Sandra
did.
does
really
not
is.
enjoy Colonel Sanders.
I don't like him at all, but I
Asmodeus.
was like, okay, this
Me
is
either.
this is
That's why
good.
he was perfect.
Yeah.
You love to hate him.
But I also thought it was interesting too, because like I think because I was when I had to podfic it for you, I was really concerned about like names, and I wanted to make it. I didn't want to fall into those stereotypes, right? Like of like, but I was like, please tell me how you pronounce this name. I want to get this right. I want to do things. And you have like a legend or like a chart. I remember at the end of
Yes, a
Two Worlds pronunciation guide
Yes.
for
dictionary,
people.
because here's what
It's
I did. I
important.
went so far as to download a Lakota to English dictionary,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
which I still have on my phone.
Mm-hmm.
And I used it to look up names and name meanings, because that is also always like really important to me in stories. Like I like to know the
Right.
meanings behind
Yeah.
and it also gave me the pronunciation. And so I not only read it, but I listened to it. I listened to how they pronounced those names. And so that's how I was able to give that to you, because I realized, oh yeah, that is important.
Mm-hmm.
For this story in particular. And so at the end of those chapters where you have different names of the people in the tribe,
Mm-hmm.
especially in Outlander, the
Mm-hmm.
sequel,
Yeah. Yeah.
because the first part, the honorable choice, is 3 chapters.
Mm-hmm.
And basically by the end of it, obviously him and Mila get together,
Mm-hmm.
but it becomes a challenge of like him trying to be accepted into her tribe now.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And the way it's like, should I give away the plot of, but I mean, I know you've read it. Sandra, for you,
Yeah.
Casey. You know, if
Yeah.
you want to read it or
Oh,
what have you.
I'm opening up as we speak.
Oh, amazing.
I'm
It's like
prepared.
I don't want to spoil it for you, but I'm kind of spoiling it a little bit of like.
No, I'm interested in reading the next bits because I have a feeling, I don't know if this is going to be true or not, but you're hearing more about Dean's family that he's missed out on, or he's missing and stuff.
Yes.
And I'm very curious about if one Sam Winchester does somehow make it back into, this in
I'll
some
give
way.
you a little hint.
Mhm.
He does.
Okay,
Eventually,
good.
you do meet Sam in this.
Yes, good. I'm interested
in Outlander.
In that. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because Dean sacrifices everything
Mm-hmm.
for her and for what he feels is right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is very Dean, I thought.
Yeah. And the theme of
100%.
family and like incorporating him, making him like part of the family is a very like big thing. And it's like, there's a lot of struggle there. And yeah, it's a really good read. I'm definitely going to read the rest of it because I was like, I can narrate the first part. I can do the next, but I will definitely.
Thank you so much for doing that.
I love doing it.
So fun to see that, to get to listen to it. And
the honorable choice was so much fun too. And like I said, it definitely was challenging, but the relationship between them was those moments, and like the romance part of it was very sweet. And, but then you could tell there's backstory for Mila too in this next part. And like, there's other stuff going on. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff.
Oh
happening.
yeah. Outlander digs deeper, for sure, into both of them. Obviously I had to do even more research for Outlander because that is wholly set in her tribe. Yeah. And that's getting away from everything that we know. And so I looked, and that research included like, okay, what are the important ceremonies? Because a lot of Lakota culture are these important spiritual ceremonies and rituals and things. And again, their food and what do they hunt and what do they eat and all of this, because that's very important to culture.
Yeah. And also
even the thing of
what I liked about Mila too was like, even she was rebelling against what she was expected to do in her culture. And now she's having to learn things like she wishes I should have paid more attention to when my mom said I needed to learn how to make this stew because now it tastes like shit. And I don't want to do this for my husband. I want to make sure he likes, he deserves a good meal, damn it. Like those kinds of things, like relearning stuff that you've rebelled against. Yeah, I really did. There's so many like little parts of her that you're getting to learn more about. And yeah, I mean, and it's a Western Dean. I mean, he's in a,
it's Cowboy Dean.
Cowboy. Yes, it's Cowboy Dean. How can you not? And he doesn't want to give up everything of his culture either. And you can see that he's trying to fit in, but still retain himself.
Who he
and that's
is,
a struggle when you're in interracial relationships, any kind of like cultural difference. You're finding those issues in general. How much do you keep? How much blends? What comes out of the blending and all of that? I think is always an interesting result when you
again. It's that immigration culture aspect mentality. Yeah, and for him, it's very. It's kind of traumatic for Dean because again, he's given up everything. So he's really a fish out of water in Outlander, but he's doing it because he loves her so much and wants to make it work. And he wants to be, a good man for her and a better man than he's been.
Absolutely.
But
I am foaming at the mouth to read this. I swear to God, if we could just wrap this up, lads. Scrap the live stream is cancelled. We're just wrapping up so I can read this. No, I'm kidding.
Oh my God, I would love it. I would love to know what you guys think. That one in particular, because I knew that one was so niche. I knew that people were not going to gravitate toward that one. So it really felt like those two parts of the series were kind of just for me creatively to get that out.
How has the response been, like, overall with it?
Overall, really kind. In fact, there was even a response on Tumblr from someone who is Native American. I don't believe she's Lakota, but she said that she was Native American Indigenous.
Okay.
And she said she loved it. She said that it
Okay.
was beautiful, and she loved to see the representation
Mm,
because she doesn't get to see that very often in fan fiction, or
mhm.
kind of like in general. She doesn't
Yeah.
really get to see it
Yeah.
in stories. And so no, she commented on like the series master lists.
Mm,
And so that for me was like the biggest,
good.
like,
Yeah.
amazing piece of feedback that I could get, because it's like that was my whole intention. And I
Right.
even released the original, the honorable choice. I released it on the first day of American Heritage Month,
Okay.
and
Nice.
nationally.
Mm-hmm.
So I was
Yeah.
like, okay, this feels like, or hopefully I'm doing this justice.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
But yeah, at the heart, I just wanted to write, um, like you said, this kind of melding of the worlds and seeing how people can come together despite their differences, and the history of violence, and the history
Yeah.
of whatever it is between these two cultures, or these two um peoples at odds, these two communities at odds,
Right. Yeah.
and
Absolutely.
incorporating as
Absolutely.
much of the history, the authentic history, as I could along
Yeah.
the way, even down to where they settle along the river, and like that particular region at that time, and like just a lot that I looked into in order to try and make this feel authentic.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
I love that.
I'm being mindful of the time. So what I'm thinking we're
Oh
going to
yeah.
do is, Casey, I think if we go through Lily's, like maybe have you created OCs and advice, then maybe we can
Yeah.
like tie that up. But Alex, you got to come back again for another conversation, because we still have
We're
to talk
definitely
about
not
so
done.
much
I would
stuff.
love it.
You have to come back again. We
Yeah.
still have to talk about your con experience. That has to be a whole thing.
Oh, that
Like,
was so fun.
we
Oh
have
my
to have
gosh.
you
I
back
have
for that.
Supernatural's like the actual show, the way that deals with certain aspects of this has been something that me and Sandra have been talking about. It's been something that's been going on in the Discord, and like I have questions, and I just can't haul us down. That like we just don't
So
have
we
time.
have to have you back. Yeah, we
You have to come
you
back. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I realize this will be an absolute chore for you.
If I have to.
I mean, I must insist, Alex. I'm very sorry.
Oh my gosh. But yeah, I think
no
if we
apologies necessary. I would absolutely love it.
I think if we hit those two questions from Lily, and I think maybe like we'll end with like one of the questions, like maybe about cultural appropriation. I think that'd be good. But if we
Yeah.
can do those two, and
Yeah.
then I think that'd be a
Let's-
good way to
Let's get Lily's
wrap
voice
it
in
up,
here.
yeah.
Hopefully she would be able to
Mhm.
join us for another.
Yeah.
Because we didn't even scratch the surface on this one.
Yeah.
So has Lily created any OCs with distinct cultural ethnic identities? And she said, I did for Love Bomb when I first posted it, and it did pretty well. Not as good as my ex Readerfix, cross Readerfix, but that's to be expected on Tumblr. But once I did ask the readers if they think it would be better for me to start over as a reader insert, a few people said no, because there isn't much Arab representation in fanfic, which actually made me really happy to know others think the same way as I
Nice.
do,
Nice.
which is, I love that.
Yeah.
Because like it's always, like we second guess ourselves all the time as authors, as creatives. You're like, oh god, no, it's not good enough. So to have that feedback and be like, no, it's perfect, don't change it, is absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
And then the last question that we sent on over to Lily was, what advice would you give a writer interested in writing about culture outside of their own, that they don't have first-hand knowledge of? How can a writer avoid cultural appropriation if their goal is cultural appreciation? How important is research? And finding a beta that can provide a sensitivity read-through. And Lily's response was, a sensitivity read-through would definitely help anyone who is a little reluctant or hesitant. And especially if you're writing modern-day Arabs, it might be needed. I wouldn't say I'm that different from some of the friends I made on Tumblr, since we're all the same age, and a 20-year-old is a 20-year-old no matter where they live. Isn't that the truth? But there's still those little differences in lifestyles, because my love for my culture doesn't stop at talking about it. I practice it daily. Sandra, you're gonna have to help me again. It's like that was like hours ago.
I think it's Kulthum.
Kulthum.
Yeah.
They practice daily by listening to that person and wearing long skirts, not hanging portraits of people in the house. That one's a religious thing mostly. And the internet wouldn't come up with these little things that you can incorporate into your story beautifully. So talking to an Arab, asking them is more efficient. And I think we would all agree here that the best way to learn about other cultures is to talk to people from those cultures in a nice, respectful way. Don't like come at someone sideways, but just You just have a fucking normal conversation with people and you will learn things.
Yeah. And I think too, because I mean, Alex, I think the way I wanted to wrap this up too, because I know you've talked about like sensitivity, like you do this for a living, you do sensitivity read throughs, like in terms of like avoiding cultural appropriation, if your goal is appreciation, like how have you found what would be your term for that? Like when you're doing a sensitivity read through, are you a sensitive reader? Are you a sensitivity reader?
I'm a sensitivity reader. That's something I do freelance for major publishers. So basically, when I'm reading a manuscript and they're telling me, okay, there are cultures depicted here. This person is, let's say they're, Puerto Rican and the other one is Dominican or whatever, or there are instances of like, this person is this kind of character, and they just want to make sure that there are no harmful stereotypes at play. That's typically the main one. So if you are unsure, when you are writing about a culture, a character represents a culture that is not your own, and you don't have that firsthand knowledge, you need to do your research. You have to ask yourself, is this a stereotype? Is this something that you're getting from a very specific instance? Or is this something that you've just like seen proliferated in media? This idea, do you actually have some kind of basis for how you're characterizing this person or this culture? And are you making a generalization? Can you say this about this group of people in all instances? If the answer is no, then you need to do more research. Or you need to speak to somebody who is of that culture who can give you more insider information. That's why they come to me, because I'm considered, for lack of a better term, a specialist in Hispanic and Latin Americans, Latino Americans in this country of America. So obviously, if you're writing a character who is specifically from Guatemala, for example, you should talk to somebody who is Guatemalan from the motherland.
Right.
Yeah.
However, if you're just talking about general instances of potential racial bias or just potential discriminatory language and stuff like that, that can also be part of it. But then I've also caught instances of like, okay, you've mentioned, you've described this person as rotund or fat like 5 million times in this manuscript. Is there another way to describe this character or these different characters?
Yeah.
Just kind of from little bitty stuff like that.
How do you think a fanfic writer goes about trying to find a beta for that?
So I would think, like databases, or not databases, but like Discords, like SPN fanfic pond.
Yeah.
There's a lot of groups of people in there, and they're also there's literally a channel just for like beta read requests.
Yeah.
And so if you just detail in your request, or if you know me and you know that that's my background, for example, and you're trying to write a character who is Latina or Latino or whatever.
Yeah.
Part of my heritage, whatever.
Yeah.
And it's not your culture, but you want to write an aspect of something that's authentic. You can reach out to somebody, via their asks or whatever and be like, hey, I'm writing this story. You don't even have to read the whole thing if you don't want to, but here's the situation. What would you recommend?
Right. Because not everybody's going to be as brave as you and decide to do this unless they really think that, they've got the time to really give it their all to research. You know what I mean? Like if they don't have those tools, it's important to say, well, there's other people out there that can help you. At least if this is really something you want to try to explore for X, Y, and Z reasons, like I feel like that's maybe the part that's harder is like, where does the ask go? How do you get over that initial, should I even try, part of it, that I think is.
It's like, how serious are you about the story?
Right.
It's like, how serious are you about making sure something's authentic, even if it is quote unquote just fan fiction?
Yeah.
For me, you guys know me, I'm super anal and I'm super like too much. Like I go like I go hard in the paint when it comes to like stories, regardless of where I'm posting it.
Right.
So I want it to be the best version that it can be. Um, especially when you're dealing with something as that's why they call it sensitivity, because it is sensitive material.
Yeah.
You're dealing with a hot pocket, a very hot pocket.
Yeah.
So you don't want it to burn your hands
Yeah.
or your mouth.
Yeah.
So or somebody else's mouth.
Yeah.
So
and you want to be respectful of the ingredients in the hot pocket.
Yes.
You know, like
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh, this has been so good. Now I'm like, damn it, we have a live stream, but we have a live stream. We're gonna have to, I think, cut this short. But we can have you back.
Absolutely.
I must insist, Alex. I'm very sorry. I realize that it's like hella inconvenient, but you must come back. You must come back. I'm sorry.
Oh goodness.
No apologies necessary. Will be happy to come back. I love chatting with you guys, especially about this stuff. Like, I love talking about this stuff.
Yeah, and
it's stuff that is not really talked about.
No, and that's
exactly.
the thing too. I really wanted to find time to just kind of like delve into this more, and I love that you were receptive to come back and that we were able to get Lily's comments out here too. But
absolutely, it's very cool getting her perspective as well.
Yeah. But I mean, do you have any sort of like final thoughts, like overall about like, I know we hit a lot, but like maybe just if you had to give somebody like maybe 2 pieces of advice, like if you're interested in doing the writing outside of something that's in your wheelhouse, what would you tell them to do?
I would say there are 3 things when you're sparking imagination for any new story. Obviously, you start with number 1, write what you know. Then you go, okay, write what you can research and write what you're interested in. If it incorporates at least 2 of those things. So you can write what you know and what you're interested in. You can write what you can research and what you're interested in. No, as long as you get both of those elements, expressing yourself, you can do that in any kind of a way. If you're trying to incorporate other people's stories, you need to have credit where credit's due. And make sure that you're coming at it from the right place. It's like, why do you want to write about that? Right? So as long as your heart is in the right place and you're genuinely trying to the best of your ability, represent respectfully and with authenticity, then, you can do what you want to do. I mean, there are authors who have recalled their own books because they realized, oh shit, I did not represent this to the best of my ability. And I don't want this out there. Like, I don't want to proliferate harmful stereotypes or cause harm. I want to do my due diligence. So
respect for that though. It takes a lot to be like, oh, I fucked up, guys. Oh no.
Yeah, it takes a lot to be like, I'm gonna lose out on all this money and I'm gonna lose, public respect, potentially get backlash on social media and potentially, limit my chances of publishing again because I want to take responsibility for this. And so obviously we're in fanfic world, there's less pressure, but there's still a thing of like,
but the bar should still be high, I think.
Yeah, it should.
Yeah. We should still aim for that, right? Like, I think that's the goal too. Like, we should aim to
take it seriously is all I'm asking.
Yeah. Or if you're going to have fun with it, have fun with it in a way that's not going to hurt or harm. Like you said, do no harm to others. I think that's
exactly
important.
Have fun and be creative, but also take responsibility.
Yeah, that's what I was going to call that too.
Yeah, words have power, and it's not always a little fun drabble.
Yeah,
you can hurt somebody in 100 words or less.
True.
What is the character limit on Twitter, right? Or on X, whatever it's called. Words have power. Regardless of, so it's important to remember how you're using them, whether it's an anonymous ask on Tumblr or whether it's a 500 word drabble, or whether it's a series.
I think you just got your title there, Sandra. Words
Yeah.
of power, so be careful how you're using them.
I
Like,
think
that's-
so.
Yeah.
That was
Fucking-
standing out to me.
Somebody write that down.
I'm
It's not
reading
gonna
it
be
down.
I like
Writing
that
it down.
title.
I'm
Honestly,
writing
if
it
I could
down.
be remembered for one idea, that would be it.
Yeah.
Yep, that's confirmed now. Title. That's
Words of power.
Sandra's written it down.
There we are. Alex, thank you.
Thank
We've
you
got
so much.
We've
Thank you,
got to say ciao
guys.
ciao, but please, I'll touch base with you. We'll figure another time to have you back on. We're gonna talk con stuff, all these other good things. But take care of you. And
Yes.
Thank you.
Rest
make sure you rest up, do all the things. I'm sure I'm going to be in your Discord DM soon, and just to follow up and everything. But I so appreciate you taking the time to just talk to us today. Really do.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah.
If you guys do get into those stories, let me know.
Oh,
I would love to-
yes.
I'm gonna be in your business tonight. I'm gonna be in your
all up in my
business.
business.
I have the honorable choice open. It's a reasonable length that I can read it tonight when I'm done with all my
Yeah, it's a short
your
series.
business.
Yeah.
And Outlander is only 4 chapters. Yeah, they're both pretty reasonable, I think.
Yeah.
Good. All right. Well,
See
you
you
have a
later.
good rest of your
Those
day,
lists.
okay? Big hugs, though. Appreciate you. Have a good rest of the day,
Yes.
okay?
Thank
Take
you
care of you.
too.
All right.
Take care.
Mwah. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.
Oh, that was so good. Damn it.
So good.
All right.
We overscheduled ourselves, damn it. Gosh darn it.
All right. I know we could have thoughts on this, but I think a lot of stuff was gone through, especially Lily taking the time, Alex taking the time.
100%.
I
Yeah.
hope we can explore this more, at
Yeah.
another point too, because I think it's important. It needs its space to just be talked about.
I've got to say from my point of view, not coming from, an ethnic minority or a cultural minority background, I just tried really hard to just fucking listen.
Mhm.
Like, I know, like, my mouth opens sometimes without my consent.
No, but still,
But I
yeah.
was trying to just listen
Yeah.
and learn, because this is not somewhere I would or could or should speak with an authority, really. I have like things that I think, but like I just need to sit back and listen to you guys, because you guys are the
Give Alex the voice, give Lily the voice, because it's
Yeah.
important. It's important to, like I said, the representation is important. The diversity is important. We can't continue to think that everybody can just fit into, a square peg stuck into a round hole, square peg, whatever the thing is. Like, everybody's got so much to give. And I think we have to be just more open to that and not like, nope, things have to be this way. So we're trying to break
No, I
that,
agree.
damn it. We're trying to break that.
We're doing our best. We're doing our best.
But we've got a live stream to get ready for, so we're going to wrap up this episode. But
we better, to quote Jensen in that fucking behind the scenes, we better hurry this quick.
Yeah. So we want to thank you for listening. Let us know your thoughts. We figure there's going to be a lot of them. Email us at idlinginttheimpala@gmail.com. Comment on Spotify in the Q&A section. Leave a YouTube comment. Join our Discord and chat with fellow idlers and us in real time. Check out our merch store, another fun way to show your support. You can find details for everything on our website. That's idlinginttheimpala.com. Want to fuel our supernatural road trip? Consider joining us on Ko-fi for as little as $1 a month. We have perks to go along with different membership tiers, and would love to have you along for the ride.
Speaking of perks, we've got special shout outs for some of our Ko-fi members. From Shotgun Picks and Music tier, we've got Crowley's Mistress, Runaway Dreamer, and Sam and Dean 76. From our own Mrs. Butters tier, we've got Charlie. Thanks for picking the tunes in the car and keeping the lights on in the bunker. Support like yours keeps our podcast going. Thank you. Don't forget, you can always support us for free by liking, commenting, subscribing on YouTube, and following, rating, sharing on audio platforms. Engagement like that really helps us with the algorithms. All hail their benevolence. As always, we have the causes we support in the description. So from me, you have LGBTQ plus talking charities. From Sandra, you have mental health charities. And of course, the main causes we continue to highlight, champion, spotlight are World Central Kitchen and Doctors Without Borders. If you want to know more about these causes, why we're supporting them, what they mean to us, check out idlinginttheimpala.com. There's a page there called Cause is Cause with all the details. So with that, we want to say huge thanks to Alex for coming to talk with us. We're sorry that we kind of overscheduled ourselves a little bit. Thank you endlessly to Lily for providing the replies to the questions. And we're going to try and get Alex back, and, we'll try and get Lily.
Yeah.
We'll try and work out a time where it can all work and we can have another big old discussion, because I don't even feel like we scratched the surface
not even
on this one.
Even.
But thank you to Lily for replying and giving us all their wonderful thoughts. Thank you to Alex for joining us. Thank you for joining us in the back seat, and we will see you next time, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.